However you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls, to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portals and tantalizing turnoffs. Tonight, we have two very special guests. In the first hour, we have Lady Anne, author of Aperture in the Veil, Born into a Preternatural World. And in the second hour, Cheryl Costa, author of Magickal Musings of a Rogue Witch. So we are all in on the paranormal and magic tonight. I'm really excited. This is going to be a really fun show, an enchanting show, if you will. And we'll immerse ourselves in the mystery tonight by exploring the reality of magic and the supernatural, and how we can support their intersection with the years of practice and practical wisdom, and the loving heart and historical study of these two guests tonight. So very excited. If you are a fan of Paranormal Now, please comment down below, like, and subscribe. I really appreciate all your support. Little by little, the channel is growing, and it's because of you. So thank you so much. And if you're listening to the podcast, please jump on over to Paranormal Pop on YouTube. That's youtube.com/paranormalpop. For coffee lovers, you know what to do. Go to aliencoffeebean.com and you can put in the mystery 20% off code. That's mystery 20, all caps, mystery 20. Shipping is only in the USA. So if you are in the US, you're obsessed with like coffee, like I am, and you love aliens and UFOs, it's the perfect combination. And now, the one and only Lady Anne.
Hello.
Lady Anne, welcome to Paranormal Now. Hey.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being on. I really appreciate it. We did a Coffee and UFOs podcast together. And now we're here live on Paranormal Now. And it's, I'm really excited because you have written this new book. So I'm going to read a little bit of your bio so people get to know you before we continue. So Lady Anne was born with the paranormal in her blood. She has had experiences beginning with her earliest memories from ghosts, shadow entities, Sasquatch encounters, and more. Lady Anne is a Reiki master, intuitive tarot reader who loves to dive into the spiritual realm and adds to otherworldly flavor to her show. Anne is the owner of KPNL Radio, a digital broadcasting station that airs music 7 days a week and paranormal podcasts after 5 p.m. Because who would podcast the paranormal before 5 p.m.? Lady Anne's book, right? Lady Anne's book is now available. Aperture in the Veil, Born in a Preternatural World, which explores what it's like to grow up with the psychic abilities and seeing things you thought only existed in your nightmares. She has also been a guest on many other podcasts, including Into the Fray Radio, Spaced Out Radio, The Quest, Dark Windows, Mojo Encounters, Lighting the Void, Beyond the Strange, Mysterious Circumstances, Missing Persons, and Mysteries, Chasing the Truth Paranormal, and many more. Cheryl Costa is coming up in the second hour, and she has, I think, a lot of crossover with some of the research that you've done. So I think it'll be really fun to kind of glide into the second hour. So before we talk about your book, where are you with magic? What's your relationship with it?
Well, magic is something that I've been interested in ever since I was a teenager. I remember being on vacation with my dad down in California, and I found this little hole in the wall shop, and it was so neat because it was like it was a spiritual shop, and it was the first one that I had ever been into. So you had your crystals and your tarot cards and your books, and I found one. I can't remember the name of it, gosh, because I was like maybe 12 or so. I know that it said Wicca big across the front of it, and it talked about spells and magic and everything. And of course, I was very interested right from there, and I have been ever since. I do a lot of candle magic. I believe that we're really powerful manifestors. So, and I believe that everything is made of energy. So the intentions that you send out, they pull that energy back to you. And I think that is, magic it can happen every day. If you're really super hoping for that job interview, you're hoping to, get that car, that house, whatever. And the more thought that you put into it, the more energy that you put into it, you create it into being.
Is it intense when you're trying to do magic, or is it a state of relaxation? How does it work for you?
Well, I guess that would depend. I have looked into the Golden Dawn, and I was starting out in ceremonial magic. And
Mhm.
with ceremonial magic, it was a lot more intense. It was you really focused your energy, and you really you there was a lot that went into it. But when you do everyday magic, if you will, lighting a candle and putting the oil on it and putting the herbs on it. It is more of a meditative, relaxing state of mind.
So there are different forms of magic that you've played around with.
Yes, yes, many actually.
Have you had any moments where you're just like, "Oh my, I should not have done that."
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
and I feel really bad about it to this day. I was actually in 8th grade, and I
Mhm.
had come across this. It was like a cord magic, and I had knotted this cord, and I was I feel really bad. I put
Is
it
this
in
gonna
the
turn into, like, an
library.
'80s horror film?
No, no, but, like, maybe it was because of me, maybe it was coincidence, but there again, I don't
Mhm.
really believe in coincidence. So, at the time, we were having problems with the librarian at school, and we had knotted this cord, and I wrote about it in my book as well, and I had placed it above the windowsill in the library.
Okay.
Well, later on that day, one of my friends came running up to me and said, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what happened." Well, the librarian had the same exact car that a senior did, and the senior had problems with this other kid.
Mhm.
Well, he was gonna slash all 4 tires of this guy's vehicle, but it actually ended up being the librarian's, and it happened on the same day that we
So
put the cord in there.
oh my gosh. This
Yeah.
worked. This worked. This is magic that actually worked.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah,
is
I
one of
felt
your
really bad.
earliest attempts at casting a spell.
It was
Is
my
it?
very first one.
Very first one. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Now, is it easier to cast spells when it's new and you're kind of naive? Like, when you're young, I think a
Hmm.
lot of us are more in tune with our psychic self, right? Because there's a kind of a naivete and innocence to it, and it's
Right.
easier to believe things, I think. Is that
Right.
true with magic, or does it get harder, more difficult as you get older?
I would say it depends, because, it really depends on your belief in yourself. Do you
Mhm,
believe that you can actually manifest this? Do you believe that, you can really have and set that intention and create it into being? If you lack that self-confidence, that belief in what you're doing, it will
mhm.
hinder the outcome.
And how do you get around that? Do you have any?
Oh gosh. Well, um, I would say write down everything that has been successful. Every single time that you have had the intention and you
Mhm.
have created it, write it down. And when you're feeling that self-doubt, go back and look at your notes.
Okay. So tell us about your book.
Yes, oh my gosh. So
What is yeah.
it follows every single experience that I've had from my very earliest memories. And really, it didn't start out as a book. It was just a file. It was like a Google file that I was writing because, I'm a single mom. I've got kids, and you think about how, I mean, we're not promised tomorrow.
Mhm.
We're not.
No.
And my children have had experiences as well. And I wanted that if anything ever happened to me, they would have something left behind that they could read. And they would also know, hey, my mom went through this and this is real. This is an actual part of our world. Um, and then so they'd have something to research, something to connect to, a door, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, because that, here again, the title, Aperture in the Veil. So I use the word aperture because it's an ode to my parents because they were really into photography. So that was the opening. Of course,
Mhm.
it's an older word, and I liked it a lot better than the opening in the veil. So The reason I use that is because my very first memory, I was about a year old, and my father had taken me to the babysitters. He sat me in front of this big picture window, and the sun was rising. And there was these beautiful, like reds and orange, colors of the sun rising. And as I looked out at this, I just remember thinking, wow, I came back. And that's my very first memory. Well, from there, I've had a lot of past life dreams. And so they say that when you reincarnate, you are born into the great forgetting. We forget who we were. We forget our past lives. This is why, we go to psychics and we do the hypnotic regressions to try to remember. But what would happen if there was an opening in that veil to where we didn't pass through it and came into that great forgetting? So that was how I got Aperture in the Veil. Born in a preternatural world, preternatural instead of using paranormal or supernatural. I
Mhm.
use that because I believe, if you think about how there's so much the human eyes don't see, and there's so much the human ears don't hear. So what really could be going on in our world. And then you have so many experiencers. You have, our whole entire community doing what we're doing right now. I
Mhm.
really truly believe that all this stuff, ghosts, interdimensional beings, whatever, all this stuff, cryptids, it's a very natural, normal part of our world.
Do you have a problem with using words like preternatural, supernatural, paranormal?
No, no. They all have their place, but I haven't heard preternatural used a whole lot, and I
Mhm.
thought that it was really fitting because I feel like, for instance, we think of a ghost, right? A lot of
Mhm.
people could look at it like a monster. It's something separate from us.
Yeah,
But really, it's a person. They're just not like us anymore. Now they're in spirit form.
sure.
So I wanted to try to bridge that gap of separation by using preternatural rather than paranormal or supernatural.
Mhm. Of course, that presumes that we know for a fact that it's a human. Right?
Right.
That's what we're dealing with, like, someone who passed on to the other side. 'Cause
Mhm,
I'm always concerned that there is an element of perhaps deception, that a ghost that is perceived because we
mhm,
can't reach out and grab it and touch it, and because it's ephemeral,
right.
how do we really know what it is? And, is it something that we can trust?
And that it gets even deeper with the research that I've been recently doing.
Mhm.
Is it a ghost of somebody that has passed on, or are we seeing an image from the past or the future?
And then either way, that still falls into your definition of it actually being normal.
Right.
Right. Okay. So, in the past, though, did they actually see it as more what we call the supernatural? Did they
Mhm.
see the supernatural as more normal?
I think that I haven't dove into that to find out if they really what how has the opinion changed.
Mhm.
Um, it seems to be like it's more per the individual
I
and
see.
their own experiences.
And so your experience tells you that the supernatural is real. Do you
Mhm.
in your book, are you seeking to prove that, or is your
Oh,
motivation different?
no. No, so in my book, okay, so this goes back to how I even got where I am now. Um, I found out about podcasts, and then I found out that there's this whole world of paranormal podcasts, and my first appearance was on Into the Fray Radio. And this was, gosh, back in 2016, I think it was. After I told my stories,
Yeah.
I ended up receiving these messages from all over the world saying, "Oh my gosh, I've had this experience. Yes, I've seen that." And it was a
Mhm.
really healing experience for me. So it's one of those things where when I had my voice and I received that healing, then, Caravan was born. I wanted to do that for other people. And then from there, and getting to know the community so much, I, I see the heart in what everybody does. And we all have a reason, a purpose that we're doing this. Well, then, KPNL was born. Well, from there, um, I felt that, it evolved from just having something for my children to having something for the community. Because now that I've written this, I've had other people message me and go, "Oh my gosh, I thought that I was the only one," or "I didn't know that, this was actually a thing." And
Mm.
I feel that it facilitates healing on a bigger level.
So do you think the book itself is a vehicle for healing?
Yes, I do.
Wow. So in a sense, that's kind of a form of magic.
It is actually. It is. There's a lot that I put into the cover work too.
Yeah.
Between there's the Eye of Ra that I put in there, and then in the very corners there's circles with a little line in it. That was actually the moon phase on the night I was born. So
Um,
there's a lot of symbolism in there as well.
so it's kind of like saying that you're putting a spell on people who read this book. So if everyone
I
listening, if
mean,
you read this book, you are participating in magic.
I mean, when you put it that way, yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So tell us more. I've joked around kind of, but not really,
Mhm,
on Coffee and UFOs about such things as dragons, right? Are they real? Aren't they?
right.
Um, where do the realm of the beasts, fit in your study?
Well, gosh, the realm of beasts and dragons. That is something that has been new for me. I believe that we have spirit guides in many forms. You can have a dragon spirit guide. You can have a human. You can have a horse or a wolf. I mean, um, we all have a different energy that is connected to us. But that realm again is something that is completely new for me with that.
And so your study more seems to be like ghosts and spirits and energy.
Yes, it is. The main thing has been ghosts and shadow entities, and then, of course, energy. Because I started in healing group when I was about 15 years old, and healing group was incredible because healing group was very much like doing this podcast with you right now. There was people that went from all different backgrounds. One person was a naturopath. We had a massage therapist, somebody who was into the cranial sacral stuff. I can't remember what it's called. And then you had your Reiki masters. Um, gosh, it so many different people, and the conversations were incredible. Learning about um, just how energy works, or channeling, or psychometry, which is like holding an object and being able to get impressions or see things off of that. In fact, there was a man who came in, and of course I can't remember the I know every time I tell the story, I cannot remember the name of the tools that he had, but they were Atlantean tools. They were made out of crystal, and I remember he walks in and he's got this briefcase, and I'd never looked into it before, but in my mind I could see this pyramid. And it was this crystal pyramid shaped differently than anything that I've ever seen. And it was beautiful because it was like rainbows. Well, he pulls it out of the briefcase, which I was shocked that I saw it before ever knowing that it existed. And I went
Mhm.
up to him and I said, may I please hold this? And he said, "Sure, of course." And he puts it in my hand. And I was about 15 at the time. Well, as I'm holding this, it's strange because I can see, it's like you can see space. It's like you're surrounded by that infinite darkness, but there's stars. And then you can see this like hand. Like it seemed like it was the Palladians that they were
Wow.
coming through. Well, I walk over to this woman who's sitting on the couch, and the next thing I know, she's crying and she's thanking me. So obviously, I channeled some kind of a message by holding this pyramid to her, and she was so grateful. And again, I never really found out what happened. I've tried to reconnect with her. My dad was there. I even tried to ask him, but I have no answers. So energy and channeling has been absolutely a huge part of my life. And then recently, I did sign a second contract for another book, which is called Paramorphosis. And I basically took the word paranormal and metamorphosis and I slapped them together. Basically, I'm studying that. Now, this is not a blanket statement. This is for the
Mhm.
individual. That for me, I am wondering if most of my paranormal experiences that I've had are more extraterrestrial in nature.
Hmm.
So now I am diving into the world of aliens.
Aliens. It's
Yeah,
so
it
funny.
feels weird.
It's funny how it goes both ways.
Mhm.
People who study extraterrestrials, UFOs, find themselves overlapping with other aspects of the paranormal,
Oh yeah.
and oftentimes people who seriously have an interest in the origin of the paranormal often find themselves considering the ET, or non-human exoconscious intelligence. Um,
Right.
and so, do you think when you say that, are you thinking that these are literally extraterrestrials like Palladians from another planet interfering with
Hmm.
our holographic reality and creating these either illusions or effects of what we call ghosts or the paranormal?
Well, right now, where I'm at, I am, let's see, maybe I need to start it with a.
A caveat.
So I'll go back and I'll say this. I experienced a lot of shadow entities when I was a kid. I saw a lot of shadow entities, but I also saw a lot of UFOs in the sky. I remember
Mhm.
talking with my dad. My dad is ex-military. He was in the Air Force, and it was actually a conversation with him where I said, how can you tell the difference between a UFO and a plane and a satellite? And he said, oh, well, it's very easy. And he said, a plane will, stay steady, and a satellite, is, he just explained it all. But a UFO has more sporadic behavior, or it'll just blink out. And I remember seeing, it was really interesting because there was one that was multicolored, and it was as if the color that was going around. So you could see it and then it would disappear. You'd see it again. Well, it also had this like a Z shape movement where it went across the sky kind of slow, diagonally down, and then when it was down, it just shot off like nothing I've ever seen. And you're kind of sitting there thinking, did I really see that? Because it was kind of hard to process. Well, from there, I remember then I asked my father, "Are there good aliens and bad aliens?" And very matter of factly, okay, to a child, he was like, "Well, of course there are. Just like there's
Mm.
good people and bad people."
Wow, yeah.
For him to say it like that, it means something. It's not, I don't think you would talk to a kid and say something like that you're goofing around about, or, what have you. So, from there, and this goes into my second book, there was one story in my first book that I did not share. I did not talk about, and I actually, it's new for me to talk about.
Mhm.
Um, and that's where the second book starts. So I was in bed, and it seemed that there was a man that was going around my bed. And when I was laying there, I remember thinking he was on the right side, but he pops up on the other side, the left side, and he touched my lower back. And it was so weird because it was so real, but when he touched my back, it was almost as if it went into my body, not just a touch on the skin.
Okay.
This experience has stayed with me my entire life. And even now today, that part of my back, it'll go
Mhm.
off occasionally. Like if there's something around, whether it's a spirit or something, it's like it twitches. There's a feeling like it's activated internally. And I don't really know how to explain it other than that, but I did have a hypnotic regression
Mhm.
to try to look into it further. And what was so shocking was as I'm laying there and I'm viewing this from a different, perspective, it's as if the man is a hologram going around. And there is a being standing at the foot of my bed. And this
Oh,
being is so it's so real, and it looks like reptilian is the word, I guess, that you would
really?
use. Yes, and it was strange because it was like wearing a hat,
Mhm.
and it was as if this being was projecting the man. So my consciousness, my focus was on the man. It was not on like that's it was projecting like a screen memory. So that's all I remembered until I went into the regression and I actually saw this. Now, I've never seen anything like it before. So I Googled when I was on my way home, I was like, okay, different types of alien species.
Sure.
Well, there was a book that came up. I can't remember the title. Some it's like Encyclopedia of Extraterrestrials or something like that. On the cover of this book is
Mhm.
the exact thing that I saw at the end of my bed, and I've never seen that book before. And it was one of those things where I was just like, "I'm done. I'm done for a while."
That reminds me of when
Mhm.
Whitley Strieber's Communion book came out,
Mm,
and everybody just tons and tons and tons of people saw that book, whether in a library, on a shelf somewhere, and saw this face looking out at them and was like,
right.
"Oh my gosh, that's them, or that's the person that I or entity that I saw."
Yeah.
Um, and there's a sudden this connection to something a much bigger
Mhm.
world.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and it has been. It's been it I will say that it's definitely a difficult rabbit hole to jump down because every single time that I've tried, and I did talk about this a little bit in the book where I would mention extraterrestrials to my friends on the phone. Of course, we had the landline, I had a rotary dial phone, and um, you could hear static. It was almost like somebody came on the line. And then the phone line would cut off. Literally, you couldn't use not one phone in the house, and it would take a while before it was usable again. And it
Mhm.
only happened, I mean, because I've considered that could it just have been a faulty phone line? Well, it would have happened during other conversations, not just this,
Yeah.
you know?
How serious do you think we should take this? Are we like, is there a future that you imagine that's a Stranger Things level of the ripping of the veil between
Well,
realities?
I mean, I never now we're gonna jump in real quick to my Sasquatch experience. That was something that I didn't want that to be a part of my reality. Other people have said it, they've talked about it, and I thought, okay, that's their
Mhm.
experience. It's not
Yeah.
mine. And then all of a sudden I am surrounded by them in the forest. And
By
you
them,
know,
plural?
by them, there had to have been more than one. So, what originally started out as a ghost investigation,
Mhm.
because so somebody was on the Estes method, which is where you have your spirit box hooked up to noise
Mhm.
canceling headphones. That's right. Yeah, and you've got your blindfold on. There was a lot coming through that about the land, a connection to the land. So I had the great idea that, all right, well, let's do a ghost investigation out in the woods. Well, we go out there, and I didn't think about it at first because here in the Pacific Northwest, the forest is really quiet. But out there in Ohio, oh my gosh, it's like an orchestra.
Yeah.
Well, we get into this bit of woods and they ask me, "Hey, how you feeling?" Cuz I get the impressions and the energy and everything, and I thought, "Oh, well, I'm fine. It's great." Cuz it was real still and quiet and just seemed peaceful.
Mhm.
Well, we set up the blanket and we're sitting there for a moment and I hear this bipedal footstep. It was 2 and it was loud and you knew, but nobody else heard it, like, they didn't make a reaction, so I thought, "Okay, well, this is a new environment for me, I'm not sure about the animals, maybe it's a larger bird or a rabbit." So I try to just, not think anything of it.
Yeah.
That was when I hear this low guttural growl that it just hit me and it made me feel nauseous. Well, from there, again, I'm looking and nobody else is having a reaction, so now I'm really questioning myself. Am I just being a scaredy cat? Is this all in my head? So
Mhm. That's
I
natural.
stand up, right? I
Yeah.
stand up and I grab a flashlight and I'm looking, and just out of the flashlight's reach, you can see the silhouette standing there. And it's the head, it's the shoulder, the arm around the tree trunk.
Mhm.
And in that moment, I'm thinking, "I'm not here for you. That is not why I'm here." And I move the flashlight and I'm looking, everywhere else. And that was when we heard this really loud, open-handed smack on the vehicle that we came in on. And I'm just sitting there going, "We need to leave." Like, I'm scared. I'm scared and I want out of here. So we went out to the field that was next to this bit of woods. And we're out in the field. I'm like, "Okay, this is good. We're better. I'm better. I'm good. I can be here. We can continue the investigation out here." Well, the person that I was with decided to bring up, it's on YouTube, it's a 1994 Ohio Howl recording. So she plays it on her phone and she's holding it up, and then you hear it. You hear it come back out of the woods, but so loud. Just, I mean, so loud. And
Mm.
in that moment, I'm just like, monsters really do exist.
Yeah.
And from that moment, you hear this loud tree, like, it's like something ripped a tree out of the ground and it smacks it against another tree, and I'm just like, "Go, go, go," I wanna get in the vehicle and just drive out of there. And in that
Yeah.
moment too, I'm sitting there going, "There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do." If they, because you hear about them being in groups and you hear about, I mean, if they really wanted to come out and run at you, then you're done for. There's nothing you can really do about that.
Yeah.
So, and that story also was the one story that stood between myself and actually publishing my book. Because when you're writing, you really have to relive these stories. Because, I mean, and you have to, because you can't create the theater of the mind and really bring the reader into that moment if you don't.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. If you're
but
blocking,
after, yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So, in this field, in my life, um, I definitely feel like it's been that Stranger Things, or what was it? Was it, True Blood? Where all of a sudden, or Vampire Diaries, whatever it is, where the human all of a sudden realizes that, okay, vampires are real and werewolves are real and now fairies are real.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, the world really does take on a totally different form.
Yeah, it's amazing what one experience can do, and
Oh, yeah.
of it. I
Mhm.
mean, that's the documentary Half-Light is really exploring that. And I know what you mean when you're delving into these, because when I was putting the documentary together, I'm watching these clips of the people that I interviewed over and over again, telling their stories, and like I'd get teary-eyed like over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Normal everyday life, I wouldn't, but in that
Right.
moment when you're kind of putting this thing together, you have to kind of stay in that raw state, um, and not be numb, become numb to it. So I understand what you're saying, that you're sharing
Right.
when you're sharing that very scary story, that you've got to
Mhm.
kind of be really raw with yourself as you're writing it out.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly. I mean, it's the whole book is like that. I opened it up with a story. It was my very first, I don't know if you'd call it psychic impression or foresight or what have you. I
Mhm,
was about, how old was I? Oh, 9 or 10, I think. And my dad and I were traveling up to Spokane, Washington. It was for another one of his postcard shows. They were antique dealers, and he put on, the largest antique paper shows in the Pacific Northwest. And we were on our way to a smaller show up in Spokane. And I remember it was early morning. It was during the summertime, and we had the window down a little bit. And I laid my head down and I closed my eyes because we still had about an hour or so to go. And that's when I remember seeing a scene from a movie called Fly Away Home. And in the opening of the scene, the girl gets in a car wreck with her mom. Her mom doesn't make it. And I open my eyes and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to be thinking about this right now. We're driving. I don't know why this is coming to mind. It was very unsettling. And then all of a sudden, I hear this really loud explosion. It was like a gunshot. What ended up happening is the tread blew from our tire. We were going about 65. We were in a little Ford Ranger pickup, and it rolled twice. Um, we landed up right on all four, tires, which was amazing, and I only ended up with 2 stitches on the back of my hand. Um,
mhm.
and yeah, it was, and then there again too, my dad, he had leaned over into my seat and he pulled me down and he laid over on top of me. That saved his life because the roof of the truck was completely, caved in, right where his head was if he hadn't have done that. So, um,
So by helping someone, he helped himself.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, exactly. So retelling that story, I realized that I had never, like, that experience happened,
Mhm,
and then I never really thought about it, and I never talked about it. So when I was writing it out, it was very difficult. Again, it was something that you had to kinda get up and walk away from and just pace yourself as you're writing it.
mhm.
Not too long after that, I had gotten a book called Talking to Heaven, and it talked about premonitions and psychic abilities, and that's when I began to realize that, okay, maybe that's what that was.
In the moment, what's going through your mind?
You mean like when in during when that happened or
Mhm.
during
During
the
when it
wreck?
happened. Mhm,
Um, you know, at first I was just dumbfounded. I didn't know why I would be thinking about something like that. I never told my dad about it. After we had landed on all four tires, I had guilt. I thought that maybe I should have said something. Maybe I should have asked him to pull over, because if he would have pulled over and he would have been slowing down, would it have happened that way? Would it have just blown while we were sitting on the side of the road? So I did have a lot of guilt over that. And that part can be really difficult because later on in life, I had another. It's so hard because you have these feelings and you have these impressions, but that discernment on, is this a psychic impression or is it not?
Do you
You
doubt
really
yourself?
don't ever know. Yeah, I do, because I worry. I'm a mom, I have
Mhm.
anxiety, so it can be hard. But there again, there's been a couple times where that intuition has come through, and I didn't listen, and it was unfortunate.
Now, there is a difference between a gut feeling and a more detailed premonition. Uh,
Right.
are you able to tell the difference when you're just getting a gut feeling versus like, whoa, this is a big deal?
There, at times, yes. At times, yes. But there again, I do a lot of second guessing. So then you kind of, travel down that tornado of, is this really that? Or maybe I'm just being, so it can definitely be hard.
How do you how so with all that experience, and I'm so
Mhm.
sorry for that experience. Um, did you actually improve in or increased frequency of premonitions because of it, or did
Yes.
fear? Okay.
Yeah, so I realized that my premonitions, the foresight, began to get stronger and stronger. And I can't remember how I bridged it together, but then being able to, I guess, see things to come.
Mhm.
I looked at that as you projecting outwardly and looking towards, so I ended up getting into remote viewing from there.
I mean, that's like the next step, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and remote viewing was always a lot of fun. I found out about it because of those Lifetime books. They're black and they have, like, a little picture on the front. I can't remember what they're
Really?
called, but yeah, there's one that's, like, psychic powers and mystical
I
places.
I was gonna grab one. I have, like,
Oh, you
4
have
or
them?
5 already. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I do.
Yeah, so I found out about Zinner cards from the Psychic Powers one, and so I'd play with the Zinner cards, which was always a lot of fun, and then from the Zinner cards, I started on, horse races and, like, America's Top Funny Videos because 'cause they'd always pick a winner, and,
Mhm,
so I was really young, and it got to the point where it got boring because I felt like the problem was is I was so accurate that I thought maybe I'm not being accurate, maybe I'm picking up on patterns. Maybe it's not, so then I kind of second guessed myself a little bit and put that on the back burner and thought, okay, well, I'm just going to get into that more formally later
mhm.
until I decided to remote view Montauk for fun.
And was that fun?
No.
No.
So,
Okay.
what ended up happening from there, I don't know, did I think I shared the
A
picture with
little bit.
you?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the audience,
Mhm,
I had, remote viewed Montauk. Well, I attempted to with my sister on the phone with me, and, she had we ended up getting these stones, so
mhm,
black stones and white stones. The white was for yes, the black was for no, and so I put myself there. I'm imagining, the area, and I can see this hole in the ground through these leaves that are outside of it. And then all of a sudden, I'm underground and I'm standing on this graded stairway.
mhm.
And I remember seeing, I mean, it was a tunnel, but it was all lit up, and I knew that it was still occupied. Well, as I'm standing there and I'm trying to look around, out of the darkness, there comes this, I don't know, this thing, this monstrous face, and right at that moment, my sister yelled, "Stop." Now, I wasn't making any sounds,
Mhm.
and but I was startled by what I saw, and then startled as well because she said, "Stop," at the same time, and I
Sure.
was like, "Why? What did you like, what?" And she goes, "Well, I just had this feeling," and I reached into the bag and I pulled out a black stone, and I felt really nervous. And I was like, "Well, this is what I saw." And then it was you know, a little while later that I was standing out on my patio, and I wasn't thinking too much about that. My mind was on other things because I was writing for a newsletter, and I was thinking, "Okay, Earth Hour is coming up, and I want to participate in this. How can I talk to my manager of this apartment complex that we can make this a yearly thing?" And I see this mist begin to form. Well, I'm looking and I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of crazy. There's a lot of it, and I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe somebody's vaping or something like that. One of those big dragon clouds.
Mhm.
Well, I'm looking for the person, and there's no person. And as I'm watching this mist or fog, it begins to take this form, this humanoid form, and I watch it walk down the street, and it's as real as you and I. And it walks like we do, with the swinging legs and arms, just like us.
Mhm.
And as it's walking down the street, all of a sudden it's like it walks through this invisible door and it's just gone. Just completely gone. And I'm, of course, no fight or flight. I have freeze and I'm standing there just petrified because I really thought, okay, if this can just manifest out of nowhere, then it can appear right here next to me. The second I turn my back to the road and I go to walk into my apartment, there's nothing that says that it can't just be here right now.
Yeah.
Um, Finally, I ended up having, I moved out of that freeze space and I get inside the house. I call my sister. I'm completely hysterical, and I shut the door and the blinds, realizing that my children's bedroom window is completely open, facing exactly, this area. So I go in there with my sister on the phone. So I already have my phone out.
Mhm.
And we uh I've got my hand on the blind and my other hand is on the phone, and I can feel like something is staring at me. So I slowly look up and I look into this window, and there it is. The exact same thing that I saw. The head shape, the neck, the shoulders, everything exactly the same. So my sister is talking me through this. She's asking me to take a picture if I can. The phone's already out. It's just a matter of two buttons. So I take the picture, and then I release the blinds, simultaneously as quick as I can.
Mhm.
And I sent the picture to my sister, and I told her, keep this just in case I ever want to talk about it. But I decided that I was going to delete the photo because I wasn't sure if there could still be like an energetic connection between myself and this thing through the photo. I have had the photo sent in to other people. So far,
Mhm.
nobody has been able to tell me, "Oh, yes, that's the reflection of a lamp and a car in the parking lot."
Right.
Um, it's perplexed people. So yeah, and yeah, it took me like a year or so to be able to even talk about it.
So why was it what was so scary about it besides not knowing what it is?
I think that, because you go through life and you hear things that'll happen, slamming
Mhm.
doors, or you can see a pop can fly off of a shelf. That's one thing.
Sure.
Shadow entities, when you see them, that's one of those things where you can also go, is the light playing a trick on me? So it's not solid. It's not solid
Mhm.
like you and I. I mean, I'm telling you, if grandpa was to just appear to me right now, even though it's grandpa, if he was solid in front of me, he passed away in 2011, I'd be scared,
Yeah. But
So this
you
is
would be
solid.
less scared than something that is mist-like, because then it's you can't relate to it. You don't know what it is.
Right. Mhm. No, it's true. It's nothing that I had ever seen so solid like, and to see it actually form, appear, or what have you, to see the beginnings of it.
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden it's just gone. Like it just walks through nothing. Like your eyes and your body can't even comprehend what you're watching.
How did the light affect it? Did you see light, uh, touch it in any way, refract through it, create a silhouette?
No, I mean, it's just normal like you and I. It's just a solid form.
It was like its own self-contained
Mhm.
thing. Wow, okay. And did you get any energy off of it? Did you pick up anything psychically?
When I was watching it, I felt like it knew, like it could read minds. That was my initial feeling, and I remember sitting there going, "Okay, use what you've learned in meditation and clear your mind. Don't think anything because if you go to fear and you allow yourself to feel this fear that is within you right now, it's going to know that you're staring at it. It's going to know that that you're afraid, that you're completely aware of it. That never turned its head and looked at me. But when I saw it in the window, and even in the picture, it's like it's staring directly at me, like it's saying, I was aware of you. I knew that you saw me.
See, that's the scariest part. That
Yes.
sense of it knows you somehow. So how can this unknown form to you have a sense of who you are, or have, that gives you the sense of not having control over a situation? I just learned recently that, a grizzly can run like 35 miles per hour. In my head, I used to imagine, oh, if a grizzly came with, maybe I can run to the nearest tree.
Right.
It'll catch
Right.
up to me within seconds. Like that's a scary thought to have. Now,
Mhm.
we've talked about all these scary stories. Where are you, with the positive side, of all this? Because for me,
Positive.
so many paranormal experiences can be transformative and help one actually kind of
Mhm.
grow a little bit.
Even though these experiences have been scary, um, I do look at them as positive as well, in the sense that I'm here right now. I'm here. I'm talking to you. I'm completely fine. I may have fear. I may have a little PTSD with some certain things, but
I mean, you're completely fine to me, but yeah.
right. But I think that as we go through life and as we have these experiences, number one, we learn more about ourselves.
Mhm,
Why did we have the reactions that we did? Why did we feel the way that we did? Number
mhm.
two, when we reach out and we are able to speak to other people who have had experiences similar to ours, not only are we healing ourselves, but they are also experiencing that healing, and then it goes on to that bigger, what is that? The collective healing of our soul groups, that kind of a thing.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that it's how you personally view it.
When you're doing magic, um,
Mhm.
now that you've had these experiences and close encounters with these other entities, uh, it do you need to do anything to sort of protect yourself from allowing such things to sort of intersect your intention? Is that even possible? Or yeah.
I what I learned in healing group is that anytime that you're doing any kind of energy work,
Mhm,
and magic to me is energy work, you want to what I was taught to do is you fill yourself and surround yourself with the blue um protective energy. You call upon Archangel Michael.
mm,
And that right there, you're envisioning that shield, you're envisioning that protectiveness. And there's a lot of different things that you can do. We'd listen to music, we'd use our singing bowls, and that raises the vibration. Um, so you raise the vibration, you put those protective energies up, and
mm.
then you can go into doing your spell work.
That's fantastic. Lady Anne, where can people find, Aperture in the Veil?
Yes, so if they would like an author signed copy, I am under Anne Celine on Facebook. Just message me. Other than that, you can go on Amazon.
All right. And your link is in the profile. So anybody listening or to the podcast or on YouTube, you can click on her link below. If you can leave us with one thought,
Oh
Lady Anne, what
gosh.
would it be?
One thought. Okay. How about this? I think that we are here to learn unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
That everything that we go through in life, they're lessons, so that way we can learn forgiveness first, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of ourselves, and thus go on that path of learning unconditional love.
All right, we'll leave it there, and we're gonna have Cheryl Costa, another one of my favorite magic people, coming in the second hour. Lady Anne, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was an honor being here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody, thanks. Hang in for the second hour with Cheryl Costa. You're not going to want to miss this. She's the author of Magickal Musings of a Rogue Witch. She is one of our regulars here on Paranormal Now. She covers the gamut of paranormal, ufological, magic, spirituality. So don't go away. Stay in the ethereal realm with us. Float among the paranormal minded, and we will be right back.
Tell me why, with 12 sides, the other that we die, roll the die. As you hide, I can't find you on the other side of the line.
This coffee is delicious. Is that a UFO? I'm actually seeing a UFO. This coffee is awesome. That's why they call it alien coffee bean. Is this even made on Earth? Hey y'all. Paranormal Now will be syndicated on the UnX network, the new mainstream, where you can find your favorite hosts and shows on the cutting edge of ufological and paranormal news and topics. Listen for Paranormal Now rebroadcast on the X at 2 a.m. EST Fridays, 11 p.m. PST Thursdays at unxnetwork.com.
On and again, the signs keep on coming, they point to the end, but I hold on so tight.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your most grateful host. Thank you. Wow, what a great hour with Lady Anne. I really appreciate her wholesome approach to what oftentimes is perceived as scary, and rightfully so. But you know, there's so much more to this phenomenon, and we're going to continue the conversation about the mystical world with our very own mystic, Cheryl Costa, in just a moment. A little bit about Cheryl. What she has been practicing magic for decades. She has retired from teaching individuals, or in the process of retiring from teaching individuals, and she decided to share her unconventional magical style in her entertaining, readable book, Magickal Musings of a Rogue Witch. She also hosts the radio show Cheryl Costa's Mystical Mentors. Cheryl is a native and resident of upstate New York who saw her first UFO at age 12, a military veteran. She's a retired information security professional from the aerospace industry. She's been a speaker at the International UFO Congress and at the MUFON Symposium. Cheryl wrote the UFO column New York Skies for Syracuse NewTimes.com. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the State University of New York at Empire State College in entertainment writing, and Cheryl is the co-author of UFO Sighting Desk Reference, as well as the UFO Beat, the New York Skies column, July 2013 to 2019. Cheryl Costa, welcome to Paranormal Now again.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Good. So glad to have you back. And it was so great to hear you speak at Pine Bush last weekend.
Oh, that was a rockin'. That was fun. And I did 2 talks. I did the impromptu on Saturday morning, and then I had a formal talk the night before, which was wild.
Yeah, I mean that was a late night and then an early morning, and then you guys, got away and got some time with, I think, friends, right?
Yeah, I'm doing this broadcast from a cottage in the Thousand Islands. So,
wow,
so you
right.
see nautical stuff on the walls. That's what this place is.
Okay. Hey, could you bring your microphone just a little bit closer?
Sure.
Okay.
How's that?
Much better. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So tell us about your book, Cheryl. Many who have followed know that you do practice witchcraft, if we may use that term, and but now you're really coming out and sharing your personal experience and how to best behave, if you will, and practice magic.
Okay.
And I say behave because in your book, you're very clear about the responsibility, right? Spider-Man's uncle, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. Stan Lee said it best: with great power comes responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I am a firm believer you don't do nasty stuff. You don't put whammies on people.
Right.
Okay. A lot of people think it's funny, and it's not. You have no idea the implication of these things that people idly do. Mm-hmm. And I'm very, very strong about that issue. Like, there's enough woe in the world. We don't need to be adding to it.
We need to subtract, right?
And I lately, I hear some of these Southern ministers. Oh, we have to kill all the witches and everything. Yeah, but you don't see witches walking into classrooms and vaporizing kids. We don't do that. Most witches are about healing. I like the bumper sticker, witches heal. Most witches are usually very generous people. We try to do things for people. Okay. Now that's not mean you come to me and say, "Hey, I want $1 million." Nah. But I think the best use of witchcraft, and I tell people ask me, "Do you run around throwing spells on people?" And I said, "No, it's too much work, but what do you best use magic for?" And I said, the best magic I worked on myself. Okay.
And how do you mean?
Go ahead.
How do you mean work on yourself?
I turn the magic inward, make myself a better person. Give me universe, please give me the sight and the knowledge. Reach out there to the great consciousness, which is the force. Okay. And if you want to use a Star Wars terminology, the force, and, say, give me the wisdom. Okay, give me the wisdom. Help me understand what it is I'm here to do. Help me understand how I'm going to do it. Okay. And it's amazing how much, and people think it comes to as a big booming voice in the sky, and it's not like that. It's one of these things where, I want to say this. One day you just sort of know. Say you've been doing a nice deep meditation, trying to contemplate this concept. And then what happens is, feel any different afterwards, and then one day somebody asks you a question and it's way outside your skill level, and you've got the answer. Okay. And that's happened to me several times. When I lived in a Buddhist monastery for 7 years, and during the training in there, I was asked, "Ooh, where'd that go? Is that me?"
Yeah, that's you. I think we're experiencing the
no. You know what happened? Blame the cat.
Of course it was a cat.
Of course it's a cat. And the cat knocked the camera off the top of I got to make a slight adjustment here. The cat knocked the camera off the back of the computer here.
And, I got to tell you real quick, Cheryl, our cat, and I think I may have shared this before, has a way, like, we're pretty sure she's part evil, because when she's hungry in the morning, she has a way of coming up on your chest and sitting just so that her paw presses right on your larynx so that you wake up unable to breathe. And she looks so sweet and darling, but she's done this more than once to both of us. And so I do wonder.
Mine have been known to, at that waking hour, wrap themselves around my neck, just lay on it, and proceed to interject into my nice dream the sound of a tanker or a freighter sailing by. You know,
it's big in your head, right? That's so funny.
I was saying that the most important thing is to put the stuff into yourself. Ask for guidance. Ask for wisdom. Okay. Some of the best magic I've ever learned, I got directly from the source. Okay. And because I've had people say, how did you learn how to do that? You know, I ask. Okay. But the key thing is, I tell people, you know, I had somebody ask me today, literally, well, isn't it all about mixing up all kinds of herbs and spices and burning candles? And I said, no, it's about quieting your mind. All that mixing stuff, those are stage props to help you get in the mindset of doing this stuff. But there comes a point, if you really develop yourself in this regard, that you don't need those stage props to draw your attention to a focus. Okay, which is what magic's all about, is turning thought into form. Okay. And a lesson from the goddess I venerate, the great goddess Isis, Egyptian pantheon. Okay. You've got the same spark we've got. Stop asking us for crap. Okay. And
that's the message you received.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Stop asking the gods for stuff. You've got the capability to do it. Just wake up, learn how to do it, and do it yourself. But do it for the right reasons and ask for the right stuff.
There's almost like a parental parallel there.
Yeah, think. There's been many times it's like a slap up the side of the head, you know, wake up to this. It's a very interesting connection you start developing a relationship with these deity forms. I mean, you know, some people in the world would have you think, oh, they're contacting spirits. No, I'm contacting in very motherly, ancient spirit. Okay. That's the metaphor that we see. Ultimately, that goddess actually is one face in a gazillion faces of deities that the force represents. Okay, if you really think about it. And there's a great line from a number of the Star Wars movies, I'm one with the force. Okay. And that's that line you might hear the Dalai Lama say, I want to be one with everything. Okay. And that's the key to doing this. And it settles you tremendously. Okay. It settles you tremendously to do this. Now, I tell people these days, and they ask me, especially I wrote the book. Now, let's talk why the book came out. When in the lineage I came up with, when it was a particular tradition of Wicca, when a priestess or a priest retires, there's this expectation, kind of a guideline, you know, there's this expectation that you will write a book about your life in magic. Okay, some people write excuse the expression, the Buddy Crocker book of spells, you know, that kind of thing. Some people write books about how to manage gaggles, circles, covens, clans, that type of thing. Some people write a memoir of their coven. Okay, some people write their own magical memoir for themselves. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
And I took the position that I wanted to strip away all the gobbledygook people associate with witchcraft,
Mm-hmm.
and take it down to the physics that it is, and teach the mechanics of magic and the understanding of what magical physics is. And it's really, really very simple. Now, can anybody do it? Theoretically, yes. But can you learn to meditate, work yourself up from, say, 2 minutes a day over 6 months to a year, and then develop yourself up to 15 or 20 minutes of solid meditation, being alone with your thoughts? That's the hard part. You can burn all the candles you want, all the incense you want, mix up every herb known to man. But if you can't meditate and quiet your mind and focus on a single point of consciousness, you can't do it.
Why is it so hard to meditate?
Oh, okay. Why is this so hard? We live in a culture that is distracting. Okay. People these days bow their head 90 times a day to this little technical god, right? You know,
Bow their head.
Yeah, you know. You can't walk into a restaurant these days and not have 10 screens up there blaring some channel of some sports channel. Okay.
You know, Cheryl, someone said to me today, I texted you, why didn't you text me back? And I was, because I had my phone in my pocket and I didn't take it out for a while. Like, you know, sometimes I do that. I'm like, I'm just not going to look at it for a little bit, you know?
I don't live on my phone.
Yeah.
And I've gotten people trained. I only use that phone to call things, look things up. Okay. And my drugstore calls me, and maybe a handful of 5 people call me on that phone once in a while. Okay. I have told people I don't live on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you send me email, I'll probably see it on my computer later in the day. I have had messages sit there for a week that I didn't know were on my phone. Okay. I didn't grow up in a generation where my whole life is on this thing. But let me give you an example. When I was in the monastery, okay, people would put their phone on the prayer table in front of you. You're sitting near what we call a prayer nest. You're on a pillow of some sort, and you got this little table in front of you. And some people would put their phone there. And everybody's in the prayer room. We're trying to be quiet and meditate, and be alone with our thoughts, and connect with the universe, and be one with the universe. And some fool's phone would go off. If it was on vibrate, it'd be sitting there vibrating across the little prayer bench. Okay. Some people would have it stuck in their pocket. So they're sitting there in a lotus position on a little pillow, and it looks like somebody's trying to hatch an egg. You know, they're reaching, they're trying to find their phone, you know, and it just disturbed 15 to 30 people. Okay, so we started a rule back when I lived in the monastery. And for you people, remember this, when I lived in a monastery, I dressed like the Dalai Lama every day. I had the buzz cut, you know, the whole thing for 7 years. And I had my corporate job still. I worked every day at Lockheed Martin headquarters, dressed like the Dalai Lama, you know, and I wasn't the only one. There were 2 of us. So it can be done. Now, here's the issue. I started asking people whenever I had charge of the prayer room, people would come in for meditations in the evening, say after work. I would say, are you a member of the West Wing White House staff? I had students that were. Okay. Are you an EMT or a volunteer fire person or a volunteer auxiliary cop? I've had people who were. We had a separate room we sent them to. Are you a member of the National Intelligence Service? You know, we've had people who were, because we were in DC. So we would screen out all the people who had to keep something like that. Sure. And everybody else, we said, throw it in the basket with your name on it and turn it off, or take it out and lock it up in your car. Right. Now, you wouldn't believe how belligerent some people would get with you about it. Okay. But what we were trying to do is get them off their addiction. Okay, and be quiet with their thoughts for a little bit and learn how to meditate. Now, people with the meditation, why is it so hard? Because in our Western culture, we have all this churn. televisions in every restaurant we go to. We got the phones going off. We have email. We have all the typical stuff, your boss yelling at you, your spouse or your mother yelling at you, somebody's yelling at you and got you all churned up. So when you start to meditate, you start having sort of these ghosty things. You start remembering all the troubles of the day start coming up. And most people will sit there and struggle with it. And the trick is not to. The trick is just let it go. It's a ghost. It's a dream. Just let it go by.
You know, a visualization that I was taught once was to imagine like a stream going by. And so when a thought comes, just let it get caught up in the stream and then keep moving.
That works for me. But the key thing is we tell people to like control breathing. Now, I tell my students these days, I've had a lot of students come to me, particularly witchcraft students. Well, if those monks can do this 40 minutes or an hour of meditation, I can too. That's an American attitude. Okay, I can do it better. Well, those monks started when they were 7. Okay,
right.
When they joined the monastery when they were 7.
Yeah,
okay?
I don't think
old enough to
clenched fists like, oh, I got this. Right.
Yeah. Meditation is not supposed to be something that has all the strain is sitting on the pot. Believe me, it's not supposed to be like that. The trick is I tell students now, I want 2 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, I can do 10. I'll do 10. No, I don't want you to sit there for 10 minutes with your eyes closed. I want you to breathe. I want you to be alone with your thoughts. And you're going to have this crap come up. Okay. I have an adult daughter who's in her 40s now. When she started meditating in her 30s, she said, oh, this crap comes up. And I said, just let it go by. It's natural. Yep. And then shortly, in 3 to 6 months, 2 minutes a day. You wouldn't believe how many people say they can't give me 2 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. And if you get a flat situation where I tell people, get a little $5 to $8 kitchen timer, those little square ones. Okay. And don't use your phone. I don't want your phone on. Put your phone on airplane mode or turn it off. Set the little kitchen timer for 2 minutes. And when you first start out, that 2 minutes is an eternity. Okay. Now, in the monastery, I was there for 7 years. I never got up to much more than 45 or 50 minutes of solid meditation. If I'd been there another 7 years, maybe I would have been, 2 hours of meditation. But you don't need to be that deep if you're practicing magic. And I was there sort of on a sabbatical, if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
And so 2 minutes. Okay. And some people say, well, I don't have time. When are you going to pay yourself? Think of that meditation as a little 2 minutes worth of vacation.
Yeah.
Pay yourself first.
And it feels good afterwards, right?
Yes. And you know what's fun is some people find themselves in a situation they'll forget to turn on the timer. And after they've had some practice at it, they'll find out they were down for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes because sooner or later, all that ghost crap goes away. Yeah. Okay. Most of it. Okay. And you have to just deal with it. Now, sometimes there's stuff come up, you're sitting here, you're 20 years old, 25 years old, and you're remembering somebody yelling at you in 5th grade or something, some teacher slated you because you spelled something wrong on the blackboard or the whiteboard or whatever. Okay.
Yep. Screaming back into your mind. Like,
yeah. Okay. We all have things to deal with. In my case, when I was in the monastery, I'm a combat veteran. I took that time. 2 things. My objective in the monastery. Well, actually, there were 3 things. One, a lama picked me out of a crowd of 150 people and said, I know you. And it turned out I had had many lifetimes of training with this guy. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was one reason. The other reason was here's an opportunity for me to work on my PTSD issues, combat PTSD issues that were haunting me, something terrible. Didn't get very much sleep. I had to take sleeping pills to get to sleep. Okay. These days I go to sleep very calmly. Okay. I handled my PTSD issues from combat. Okay. It took me 7 years, but I managed.
Is it a maintenance, an ongoing maintenance?
Yes. Okay. I meditate about 15 minutes a day, typically, sometimes more. Most of the time, about 15 minutes. I'll take 5 minutes maintenance. I'll do 5 minutes in the morning. Okay. I have a little stool. I don't get in the lotus position. I'm 70 years old, baby. I just don't do the lotus position very well. I get into either a stiff chair, like a dining room chair, where I can stand up, sit stiff, or I sit down on a stool. I got a little stool, 3-legged stool. Okay. And I'll sit there for 5 minutes, and I'll set a little timer. Okay.
And this is still kind of therapy for your PTSD.
5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes after lunch, and 5 minutes before bedtime. Okay. That's maintenance for me. Okay. Now, if I decide I need to do some serious meditation to do a working or to do a contemplation, here's the difference. A magical working, we're sending something out.
Right.
Okay. If we're doing contemplation, we're reaching out and asking for knowledge or asking for help or trying to find information. Okay. In some cases, that might be, how do I accomplish this task? Let's go back to square one for something. Reality is a construct. This is all a trumped up joke. All of it. And because it's an artificial construct, it's malleable. It's, you can flex this thing. Okay. You can flex it. You can bend it. You can put dimples in it. It can be manipulated. It can be bent. Okay. Now, to do that, you have to be able to quiet your mind and focus. Now, traditional witchcraft has always been like you see in the movies, we got to light candles. We got to have this big, long incantation. I will take 3 old ladies saying a rosary repetitively as a mantra over anybody doing a big, long liturgious speech. Because the younger self part of our conscious, if you want to use a Christian term, the Holy Spirit, that part that is in us, that spark of life that's in us, that's connected to everything, everywhere, every when, doesn't understand words, but it does understand nonverbal communication. So meditation and learning how to do nonverbal communication is critical to practicing magic. So things like lighting candles, working with incense, magic wands, all the stuff you traditionally think of when you think of witch. These are stage props to help you, like robe. Put my robe. I don't run around like a goth with my robe on all the time. I only put that robe on when I want to do magic. And that robe is a psychological cue. Now it's time to do magic. Okay. So all these stage props we have were intended. That candle is intended not to have 50 candles on your altar. One candle to focus on and draw your attention as a single point of focus, or a crystal ball to draw your focus.
That's the same idea as a priest putting on, the robe and the whole ritual.
Yes,
is what gets you. Is supposed to get you in a spiritual mind.
Well, yeah, and I tell people when people are starting out, they want to start doing spell casting. Actually, I teach mental contemplation first. Let's learn how to meditate first before we do spell casting. And a lot of witches grew up, and I grew up this way. The first thing they introduced us to was spell casting, and it's ass backwards. And I talk about that in the book. We should be starting with mental quieting and contemplation first, then the magic. Because once we've quieted our mind, we should be able to work it. Okay.
It's interesting. Okay, so Lady Anne, who was in the first hour, she said something that reminded me of something in your book. And she said that the first spell that she tried worked really well. And she was a teenager. But you have a thought on this, right? Because there's this. Go ahead. I can see.
Okay. She also spoke about remote viewing. I didn't get to watch the whole segment, but I got to pick up that. There's a learning curve and what we call beginner's luck syndrome. Okay. And your first couple of spells, if you because you're going in with your hands open and you're going in with the innocence of a child into doing it. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And so it works. And you do it 1 or 2, maybe 3 times, and it works. It scares you a little bit. It excites you a little bit. And then you wrap your tail around the flagpole and say, I'm the great and powerful Oz. I can do anything. And then it goes to hell.
Yeah.
Okay. Remote viewers have this problem too. In fact, there's a great piece of paper from a now declassified former piece of remote viewing stuff I have from the CIA that basically said, here's this learning curve. It starts really good. And then it goes boom, then it has to ramp back up again. Okay. Mm-hmm. The idea is in remote viewing, it's a good metaphor for this. That's essentially a structured meditation. It's a structured meditation and a structured divining where somebody like a proctor is asking you questions at each stage of what they call the protocols for more and more detail about an anonymous target that's on that target queue. And a lot of people in the witchcraft community, remote viewing, that's something the army did. Oh, we can't do that. Baby, they learned how to do it. And they did the mine the information side of this thing. Mm-hmm. And the beauty is it can go the other way. So you take this envelope, you take out a 3x5 card and you put you say the Eiffel Tower as it is now. Okay. And you stuff it in an envelope, you put a serial code on there of some sort and alphanumeric serial code. And then you sit down with a class of people and you don't tell them what's in the card. You sit there, you get them meditated down and then you read off that serial number. And then you start talking them through the protocols. Okay. And if everything works out well, they start writing down elements of the Eiffel Tower. Might even start drawing it in the margins. Okay. Or the moon. I had a student a long, long time ago. Oh God, we're talking 1998 time frame. Okay. Mm-hmm. And she says to me, she was struggling with it. And almost everybody, the first time they do remote viewing, they're going, I can't do this. Oh my gosh, I can't do this, Well, okay. There are people out there on the internet who say remote viewing is this big technicolor vision you're going to have. No, baloney. It's like trying to see a cow through a bucket of mud. Okay. Anybody who tells you it's this big, colorful vision is lying through their teeth. It is not.
Yeah, it's not like some kind of hallucination.
No, it's not. Okay. You may have impressions, but what remote viewing is about is impressions. Okay. And knowledge, mining little bits of information. Okay. And you're not trying to guess it. If you go through the structure, you get enough notes that when we do analysis after the session, you never analyze while you're doing it because it turns off the mechanism. Right. Okay. The moment you shift into conceptual mind from your intuitive mind, it shuts it off. Okay.
Because it wants to control.
Well, yeah, there was that. I had an instructor once for the Farsight Institute came to the small monastery center. My order asked me to run in upstate New York for a couple of years. And I invited an instructor from the Farsight Institute to come. And there were people who paid to be there. But because I was hosting it, I got to sit through their class, right? And he had us like on a Labor Day weekend. So it's like a 4-day weekend. And where he got this particular group of 5 or 6 people in a day, he normally would take a weekend or a week with a couple of engineers or mathematicians. Everybody in that class was an artist or a musician. We were already artistically trained, very right brain oriented. Okay. So the bottom line was, he told us by the end of the weekend, what I've taught you in 4 days, and you guys like sucked it up. It would take me 2 weeks in a 2-week-long seminar to get a bunch of engineers and mathematicians to do, because the moment they start really doing it, suddenly they shift their consciousness to analytical mode and say, now, how is this working? And it doesn't work anymore. Okay. But the bottom line with this whole thing was to quiet your mind and take the information that's being sent to you and write it down. And the proctor's talking you through these protocols. It's a very structured form, a 21st century form of divining. Okay.
So you can't question what you're receiving, because is that a distraction?
Yes. Just answer the questions. Just stay in the zone and answer the questions as the proctor is leading you through the protocols. And at some point you get the draw. Sometimes there's these things called ALL. They're anomalous, where you might scribble something in the margins. You're not really supposed to do it, but they allow for the fact that some people have a strong impression of something and might draw it in the margins. And so I had this one student, she's crying. She's actually breaking into tears. I can't do this. I said, tell me what you see. Tell me what you know. We don't see, we know. We know without experiencing. That's what this is about. Good divining is knowing without experiencing. So she says, there's these clowns and they're running around with big American flag on a pole. The target turned out to be Neil Armstrong and the other astronaut on the moon in July 20th, 1969. And what did they look like? A bunch of clowns in those spacesuits running around with a flag. Another target she did with me a couple of weeks later, she again got frustrated, threw her pen down. I can't do this. I said, what's your impression? Jumping broccoli.
Jumping broccoli.
Jumping white broccoli. And the target card was a very nicely sculptured poodle.
Oh my God. That's uncanny. Wow.
Again, the trick was don't try and analyze it. There's plenty. It's like the old song about the gambler. There'll be plenty of time for counting when the dealing is done. There's plenty of time to analyze after the remote viewing is done. Okay.
Sure. Because if you try to analyze that, your rational mind goes, that doesn't make any sense.
And you just turned off the intuitive side.
Right.
That's the trick.
We have a question here, Cheryl, from Alice in Wonderland. Can you ask Cheryl about what people call mind speak when they encounter cryptids or beings? Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I've heard of it. It's not something you get in remote viewing. Okay. Mind speak. Let's say it this way. The universe. Mm-hmm. Everywhere, every when, all the beings, every instance of the force, which is we carry an instance and every living being has an instance. We're connected to the atoms all through the multiverse. There's a lot of life out there. Okay. The universes, and I say it plural, are teeming with life. Mm-hmm. Okay. And George Lucas got it right. You know, it's binds the universe together. And sometimes that pops up. Sometimes you do have these connections with beings from other places. Now, I've had students, and I wrote about it in the book. Why can't I touch an alien on Zeta Reticuli 39 light years from now? Mm-hmm. The problem is that most people can't keep their focus, point one. Okay, it's not something you do when you're first learning. Two, even some accomplished remote viewers have we discovered a little syndrome. 5 classes over 20 years. These weren't like a weekend class. These were people who came over once or twice a month for, say, a year. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we did proctored sessions. And what happened was every now and then they'd get a target card that was something really, but I'm going to say arduous. Got him into a session. And if you can't deal with the target, you put your pen down. Proctor will tell you, touch the ideogram from your initial, the little glyph that comes out of your meditation, touch it and see if you can reconnect. And if you can't, just leave your pen down. So we open up the target card at the end. Oh, it was the Titanic, where it is now, 2 miles underneath the ocean. And this guy's scribbled in his margin, I'll drown, I'll die, I'll be crushed, or something like that. Okay. Wow. We've sent people to the moon to Tranquility Base, 1969, okay, to see the astronauts. And they don't know what's in the target card. We send them there. And some of them will say, there's no air, I'll die. Because your subconscious already knows what the target is. Deep in your being, you already know what the target is. And there's this self-preservation thing.
Okay? How far can we go with this?
Well, okay. I've had people, we get them out to the space station. They can go there. We've got them onto the backside of the moon. Almost all my classes have been to the alien base on the backside of the moon. And they almost all put their pens down at the end of the session and say, whoever those folks were, they didn't like us there. Because they were aware of us when we come.
Clearly, they wouldn't be hiding if they didn't want to be found. So
yeah, that too. But they get kind of cranky when our team shows up. And I always send it. And I don't ever work with just one viewer. I like to work with an away team. Now, how's this work? Some people pick up on the environment. Some people pick up on the shapes. Some people pick up on the energetics. Some people, like me, I'm one of the 2 or 3 people I know that do this. We always pick up on the living being, if there's a living being in the environment. So I have found myself in the cockpit of more jet planes. I was in the spacesuit with Harrison Schmitt on the moon at one point, didn't know I was there, but that's where I was because I'm drawing elements of the spacesuit in my margins. Okay. When I was doing the remote viewing, I had no idea that was the target.
So when you're looking at the dark side of the moon, of all these reports, what kind of beings do we think are there? Is it us?
No. This is real time. This was real time. Okay, so there's a collection of them there, and every class I've taught has been there. It was the same target that Ingo Swann went to. Okay, back in '85. Okay, same target queue. Okay, so some people couldn't go there. It's the moon. It's too far away. Sent some people to Mars, find opportunity, find spirit. Okay, some people put their pens down and say, "I can't go. It's too far." They didn't know what the target was, but they knew it was too far. I can't find my way back. Then in 2013. I got some of my best viewers over for one afternoon at my wife and I used to own a fabric store. So we had a classroom. So we'd invite them over on a Sunday when the store was closed. And we did what we called a hard targets party. Okay. These were cards that were specially packed for us. They had some of our best hard targets that we had developed over the years, the 3x5 cards. Okay. And I didn't even know what ones were in there. Okay. I was the proctor. Yeah. So we get this one, and we went through, things like the backside of the moon. We went to, tried to find Roswell. We did all these kinds of things. There were 3 other people, triple blind stuffed these envelopes. Okay. All right. We get to this one card. Everybody within the first 5 minutes of the reading put their pen down except one woman. Okay. One woman. And we talked her through all the protocols. She got done. The target ended up, and this is in 2013, the target ended up being Voyager 1, and which at that point was 10 light hours from Earth. Okay? And she crawled all over it. She's answering the questions. She's drawing pieces of it in the margins. All this stuff turns out to be a really seasoned witch, a seasoned risk taker, and a seasoned person who could quiet their mind and just go with it and willing to take a leap of faith.
So being a risk taker is a part of this, a part of magic.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. So the idea of reaching out and touching the Akashic records, that's pretty general. Anybody can do that because it's all, we're walking through the great consciousness in the forest almost continuously. It's like we're a drop of water inside the ocean. We're all walking through it constantly. But reaching out and trying to touch the aliens in Zeta Reticuli or someplace else, or the Pleiades or someplace, that's 500 light years away. that's a little harder because this self-preservation thing kicks in, things like that. Okay, that's the perceiving side of this thing. That's why the training has to come in to be able to be strong enough and brave enough and overcome things like self-preservation and things like that. Your previous guest talked about some pretty scary stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That kind of stuff for a remote viewer has to be, you have to work with them over time to be okay to know that it's not, right now you're in a perceiving mode, you're in a knowing mode. It's not going to kill you. You think it is, but it's not going to kill you because you're just sitting here gathering information and knowing. Okay, that's the trick.
If you're doing that when you're working in magic, do you also have to visualize intention? So it sounds like you would then be perceiving and outputting at the same time.
No. The deal is that okay, if you're doing traditional magic, you have to get a visual picture in your mind of. You have to establish part of the reason to do the remote viewing, and you can do this with tarot cards. Now, let me qualify the tarot card. Bring me back to the question, but qualify with tarot cards. Pick a deck. Work with a couple of decks at first, but pick a deck and stay with it. I've been using the Robin Wood deck since 1989. I got a friend of mine uses the Rider-Waite deck since 1965. I keep 5 shrink wrap copies in my witch closet. And when I wear out the deck, it's not the same physical deck, but it's the same style because I've established a good semaphore language with my younger self by using the same symbology day in and day out. You start working with multiple decks and you're going to confuse your younger self. You need to establish that relationship of non-verbal communication. Okay. So when you're trying to do a spell, it has to be some symbology that will help get you there for the thing you're trying to do. Okay, so that's the hard part, and that's what all this witchcraft paraphernalia and stage props are about. Okay, establishing something. But when somebody tells me they write a name on something and they burn it in the cauldron, well, one, your younger self doesn't understand what was written on that piece of paper. Okay, so I've never liked that technique. There are other ways of doing it. Now, that said, a technique we've used that we've stolen from remote viewing I got to qualify something before I go there.
Sure.
Magic is not to be practiced like ordering a pizza 30 minutes or less. I got to have the spell by next Tuesday. Get that out of your noggin. Okay. Magic executes in its own time and season. Okay. Can you still hear my audio okay?
I can, yes.
Okay, good. All right. And so think of magic as active magic as something you're doing for the long haul, not something I got to do right this minute. Now, the only exception to that is if you're doing healing magic. Here's a technique I talk about in the book. If we can write down something on a 3x5 card or put a picture in a 3x5 card inside an envelope, put a serial number on the outside, and not me, I'm not going to do the action on it. You have somebody else stuff that card for you so it's blind to you. That can become the target. So say Aunt Sally is over in ICU. I don't want a picture from Aunt Sally from 2 years ago at Sally's daughter's wedding. I want somebody to go take a picture with their phone with her in ICU all hooked up to all the tubes an hour ago. Bring it back. We'll stuff it in the envelope, and I'll have my magical friends come over and have them focus their attention on that target cue. Start saying that target cue, that like the 9-digit number. Start repeating it over like a mantra, like saying rosary, okay? And saying it over and over and over again and getting it in their noggin and getting it into their mind stream. That is how you execute a really effective prayer, because now you have that picture as a direct connection to that person an hour or two ago. Okay.
Right.
And connection is everything. We see this in the voodoo movies. Oh, we got to have a lock of their hair or their fingernail or a drop of their blood to make that connection. Okay, heck, you can do it with a fingerprint. A fingerprint can act like a sigil. Okay,
it's like a bridge.
Yeah, it is. And in fact, when I was in the monastery, we used to do fire rituals, fire pujas for different people for very special intentions. And we always required, if this was for somebody else in their family, we always required 1 or 2 blood members of the family to be there for the ritual. So we, the practitioners, had a connection. We could actually hand certain have them come over and hand us certain tools in the ritual. They were actively part of the ritual in the context that they were helping us. Okay, that got that blood into the connection. Okay, but this other technique with like project, I could take that target cube. I could put the thing on Facebook and have my magical friend say, "Would you please project your healing energy towards this number 1?" I just got a whole bunch of people to all focus on the same thing, which is almost impossible. You get everybody dancing around in a circle. Are they really all focused on grandma so-and-so over here? Nah, not all of them. Okay, but if you do this target thing and it's one central point of focus, you can. Okay, and we did ritual about 2 years ago. And I got a whole bunch of people. I put it up on my Facebook page. I said, would you please send healing energy to this target number? Say it like a mantra if you have to. Now, there were some people who got all paranoid. Well, I don't know what it is, so I'm not going to do it because you might be working a bad spell, that type of thing. But the number of people who checked in and said, yeah, I did. I worked on it. Okay. And by the way, it happened, and it happened in spades.
Wow. Now, if someone says they're afraid that it's a bad spell, I mean, let's just say there is a bad spell, but the people involved in it have good intention. Do they counteract each other? Do they cancel each other out?
I would say yes. It would be opposed to what they're doing. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
If it was a bad spell. Now, maybe the intention of the spell might execute, but it might execute in a positive way. If you know what I'm saying.
Interesting. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I want to say I've seen something like that once before. So that's one way you can do this using a technique that was discovered during thing, but you can't know what the cue is as the practitioner. Okay. This is something solitaries can't do. Solitary practitioners can't do. What you can do though is if you got, I'm going to say this and a lot of people are going to hate me for it. I've had these people say, oh yeah, we had 35 people over last night. We raised some really powerful energy. No, you raised some really powerful endorphins. Okay. Everybody got charged up with the chanting and everything. Everybody got a little dinky high, wow, but were they all focused on that mission, that reason they were all there? Probably not.
Right.
A few of them were.
It's like when you're dancing, having a good time, you're kicking up the endorphins, the adrenaline, you're feeling good. Your hormones are like, all right, reward.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But
that's not necessarily magic energy.
It isn't always a magical yield. That's for sure. Okay. And I had a lot of people criticize me on that, but I have seen a lot of group practices fall flat on its face after they do it really good now while they had a lot of fun doing it and everything, but it didn't work. Okay. But every time I've ever used this target card technique with a whole bunch of disinterested strangers who said they would put energy into it, that took the trust that I'm being ethical about it, that I'm not trying to work a bad spell on somebody. Well, gee whiz, it worked very nicely. Okay. So we're trying to do this communication thing with the younger self, and this is one way to do it. And it works for remote viewing, and it will work for active magic. And I talk about that in the book. Now, let's see, you asked me something else a minute ago. I got off track here.
Well, no, that's right. But I am kind of curious about, because you mentioned healing, right? So earlier you said, you really focus some magic on the self. But what about healing magic? How does that function?
Well, healing magic is about bringing life and vitality back to that person's physical body, helping fix the things, or helping to inspire the healing, the mechanisms within the person that heal a person. Okay, we all have what is it, our immune system or something like this. The spell has to be written in that way. Let me give you another example. People say to me, there's a principle with the triangle. Okay, at the top of the triangle is intention. Any magical thing you do, you have to have a solid, focused intention, or go home. No intention, don't work magic. Okay, one corner you have skill, in the other corner you have emotion. Now, a lot of people work themselves up with emotion to cast the spell, especially anger, because it's an easy emotion to get cranked up with, right? But when people come to me and say they want to do a healing spell, now I've seen this I did this for 44 years as a parish priestess, okay? They want to heal somebody, okay? And even in the monastery, we always required somebody who was blood, okay? The best magicians would go, in the old days, we used to go fingering some blood from the person we're trying to heal. These days with the pathogens, you don't want to do that, So there was that issue. But people would say, okay, we're going to get 30 people together over in Susie's cellar and we're going to do this ritual for so-and-so, okay? The problem was this lack of focus by a whole bunch of disinterested strangers, okay? And people say, what's the solution? I said, does that family have like a 7 or 8 year old little girl or a little boy that absolutely dearly loves that grandmother so very much? And they said, yeah, okay. I'll write that little child a prayer, and I want that 6 or 7 year old, remember, they're still in that age of innocence, okay, to do that prayer, because there is more power in that emotionally charged up innocent child who loves their grandmother or grandfather or whoever it is, to pour their heart into it. And in lieu of that, go find that person's rosary partners from the church and have them do a rosary party for them. Yeah. Okay. Because that's a time-honored technique too. They're doing mantra and they're focused.
Is there a fear that some people who don't wish well upon other humans would use children in that way, like a tool?
I think you'd have to get the kid awfully demented to work up that kind of anger to do that. Okay.
I was thinking, could someone with malintent manipulate a child to commit magic that is evil or bad? Or
no, because the type of spell we're trying to do and the type of prayer we're doing, writing for the child, is the prayer is designed to do visualization, and you're trying, and it's designed around the idea of projecting healing love to that person. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you had to, again, these evil spell things, okay, it's not good magic. And I know people that set themselves up as judge, jury, and punisher. Okay. Oh, I use my own best judgment. Well, I very frequently find their own best judgment to be wrong. It is better to do a ritual and basically send out the thing. If this person, I'm usually talking about the big fish hostiles, that Saddam Hussein's and guys like that. You wouldn't believe how many people wrote me letters here during this thing with Ukraine, saying, hey, can't you melt Putin into the pavement? That kind of thing. And that's inappropriate. Okay. And they said, well, Cheryl, you're a former combat veteran. Why don't you go over to Ukraine and help? I'm 70 years old. I'm going to get in the way. Okay. But can I help? Yeah, I did. I worked on the Russian tanks, baby. Okay. Those 20-ton tanks don't work very well if the electronics fail. Magic's really good monkey wrench magic will take that down. And guess what? They've had a lot of problems with their tanks, haven't they?
They sure have.
And I'm not the only one to do it.
Yeah. So you and others were working on that. Is that? Yeah. Wow. Okay.
That's our way to help.
Yeah. So I guess, because I'm thinking, children are so innocent, but in most cases that innocence is an expression of, or rather love is expressed through that.
Yeah.
And that's what probably makes it all the more powerful.
Okay. That other part of the triangle, the skill, that's us working with other techniques that we know how to do. Okay. You see it in the movies, the connection thing. It's like in voodoo movies, oh, we got a photograph of the person. We're going to put pins through it, or they make a little doll up and it's got maybe hair or fingernails or blood, or peel off skin off their feet, off that person's foot after they went to the shower or something, and stuff it into the little voodoo doll. Okay. Again, it's a form of sympathetic magic, like equals like, and you're trying to transfer the energy that way. Again, that voodoo doll or that photograph acts up as a point of focus. Okay. I've always gone with the idea of the simple ritual prayer of, may the forces of the universe exact the corrective action against this person's wrongs if they have legitimately committed them. Okay. Kind of in the theme of there's a 1930. If anybody's a Babylon 5 fan, you'll know this thing. There was a song, "No Hiding Place." It's a 1930s gospel song. Okay. And basically the idea is, project that energy that person will not get away from the righteous judgment of the universe. The force knows if you've been naughty and nice, and the force knows if they've been naughty or nice.
Yeah. Who needs Santa Claus anyway? We've got the force.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Cheryl, thank you so much for being that hour just flew right by. So if everybody watching, please go get Cheryl's Magickal Musings of a Rogue Witch.
Go to Amazon, go to the book search, put Costa, Costa, Witch, and you'll find that book. And it's inexpensive. It's straight and to the point. It is magical mechanics. It is magical physics.
Okay. We also put links in the show notes and description. And Cheryl, tell us about, before we go, your podcast.
Oh, my podcast, Mystical Mentors. It's available on iHeart, available on Google, that type of stuff. And the segments are small. I only talk for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. I'll come on a particular topic and I'll just talk very, very frank to you. We don't use pictures. The people producing it and we're all old school talk radio people. So I just sit there and have a quiet conversation with you. No picture. You don't have to worry about seeing me all pretty or sitting here picking my nose or something. I just sit there, talk to you about a subject matter and say, this is how this works, or here's how you go shopping for a god or a goddess to worship, and I'll have those kinds of conversations. And apparently they're very popular because the producer just sent me my numbers and going, oh my goodness, and this is produced out of the UK. So I'm having a lot of fun with it.
That's fantastic, Cheryl. Congratulations. And I'm really excited about your book. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Alan. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you all for joining us tonight. As always, if you are a fan of the show, please comment down below, like, and subscribe. The channel is growing steadily but surely, so I appreciate your ongoing support. And if you haven't caught the Half-Light documentary on this channel, you can check it out now. It's free, and it covers all these amazing topics, paranormal, exoconscious, cryptid, and more that we love to dive deep into. So thank you all again. Peace and love. And of course, live in the mystery.